On April 10, 2026, the American astronauts on board the Artemis II spacecraft returned to Earth after completing a successful mission, venturing further from the Earth than any humans have ever been before. This mission around the dark side of the Moon marks a significant milestone in the science of space travel. This is the first time since 1972 that a crewed mission to the Moon has been launched. Social media content from Artemis II has gone viral, with psychologists noting that people are drawn to the human connection and unity being emphasized in an otherwise very divided world and news cycle. However, as much as the mission represents shared humanity, it also represents reinvigorated great power competition between the US and China. As is the case in many other areas of foreign affairs, gender continues to be influential in the complex dynamics of space exploration and the charged political climate that we inhabit. Gender norms have played a role in space travel for decades, influencing everything from who gets to participate in space missions to how outer space can be leveraged as a strategic area of power. Welcome to the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy's video series, Gender is Everywhere, where we unpack how gender norms in daily life and political discourse influence foreign policy. In this installment, we draw on academic research, historical patterns, and gender norms to examine the nexus of gender, space, and power. Women constitute approximately 12% of the roughly 800 people who have engaged in spaceflight since the first crewed mission in 1961. In the early days, women were systematically excluded from space travel. Until 1978, astronauts were required to have experience piloting a military-grade jet, a requirement women would not have been able to meet until 1993 when the armed forces first allowed women to pilot jets. This requirement and subsequent exclusions occurred despite research suggesting that sending women to space would be easier and less costly than sending men, based on their smaller body size and lighter weight. Although women are making progress in terms of inclusion in space travel, with Christina Koch becoming the first female astronaut to orbit the Moon during the Artemis II mission, gendered roles continue to have a lasting impact in determining the archetype of a good astronaut. With space exploration originating in the Cold War era, competition was central to determining an astronaut's competence. American conceptions of patriarchal masculinity are well suited to competition. Competitive traits like dominance, strength, and control are all associated with masculinity. The ideological conflict between the capitalist democratic US and the communist authoritarian Soviet Union also led to men being viewed as better candidates for space travel than women. Individualism and self-determination were, and largely still are, central to American identity, and traditional gender norms view men to be more individualistic than women who are seen as more collectivist. The Soviet Union leveraged this perception when it sent the first woman, Valentina Tereshkova, to space in 1963, framing the milestone as a testament to the Soviet Union's commitment to collectivism and equality. Tereshkova herself called her spaceflight a testament both to the equality of the sexes and to the superiority of communism over capitalism. Simultaneously, they sought to prove technological superiority over the United States by demonstrating that it was safe enough even for a woman to go to space. Typically, each time the Soviet Union moved to surpass the US in elements of the space race, the US would directly retaliate by doing the same or more. But in this case, the US didn't respond. An American woman would not reach space until Sally Ride's mission in 1983. This indicates just how deeply entrenched binary gender norms were in the space race and in American society as a whole. Now, the US is engaging in a new space race, this time against China. China has resolved to land on the Moon by 2030, and the US has subsequently vowed to beat them there by 2027, with the Artemis II mission being a crucial step towards that next lunar victory. Establishing a sustainable presence on the Moon before China has become a priority of the Trump administration, even as NASA is defunded in favor of contracting private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin to construct critical mission equipment. China has somewhat of an advantage in this sense. It benefits from years of consistent planning based on the CCP's long-term mapping of its goals, whereas American priorities shift across presidential administrations. If China reaches the Moon before the US, it may cast doubt on American strength, making the nation appear weak and stereotypically feminine in the eyes of competitors. To avoid such emasculation, Americans are accelerating their processes for space exploration, a move that some experts at NASA believe creates considerable risk of failure and threats to personnel safety. Gendered ideological conflict also continues to play a role in this latest era of space exploration. While both the US and China are sending women astronauts to space, with Liu Yang making history as the first female astronaut from China in 2012, these efforts are still driven in large part by the predominant gender norms and ideals being held in each culture. It's been reported that China's manned space program requires that all female astronauts be both wives and mothers, an institutional policy that reflects a specific cultural perspective on gender roles. Women should fulfill their domestic duties before focusing on their individual pursuits. This contrasts with the way the US tends to approach the idea of female astronauts, which aligns with masculine ideals of space exploration and highlights the individual achievements and credentials of the American women traveling to space. Ultimately, examining the gender dynamics of space races past and present reveals a strategic gap in American policy. As the US has pulled back from cooperative frameworks of international engagement by deprioritizing foreign aid, economic compromise, and diplomatic partnership, it now has fewer ways to project its power. As a result, it must engage in alternative, more high-stakes pursuits to convince the world of its status as a global hegemon, be it kinetic conflict, cyber warfare, or even a space race. While American ambitions to reach the moon may be a cause for celebration of the brightest American minds and scientific progress, gendered analysis illuminates that strategic weakness might lie underneath it. Thanks for tuning in to the New Lines Institute's Gender is Everywhere series. We'll see you next month to continue exploring gender's deep impacts on daily life and foreign policy.